Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Texas A&M Aggies land one of the more intriguing prospects in the 2024 class in Dreland Miller, a top 100 national wide receiver from the state of Texas. And you take a look at this guy's film, and we're not going to go into the film right now, but this is one of the best pure football players in the class of 2024. Like when this guy has the football in his hands, he is extremely dangerous, can work vertically extremely well. Texas A&M Aggies got a good one. It's been a slow start for the Aggies in this 2024 class, but they're starting to ramp it up the last couple weeks. Now, we're going to talk a little Drelon Miller. We're going to talk about what this 2024 class could look like. Now, before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys. There's been just so much support talking recruiting the last couple of weeks, so we appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. Texas A&M Aggies getting their biggest win in the 2024 class today in Dreland Miller. How we feel?
And frankly, this is a program that probably just needs to get some momentum going. And to me, honestly, like you know this team can recruit. We saw what they did in 22, one of the best classes we've ever seen in college football, period. But I think this season coming up is going to be a big one in terms of this Texas A&M team kind of grabbing back that momentum. And you got that 2022 class kind of coming into their own and probably going to be the leaders of this team. This is a big year to put on because, again, if they can win some games, you know this is a place that can recruit guys want to play for it. And certainly NIL is not a bad issue for this team.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. The Texas A&M is a team that they strike me as a team that they'll do all right in the months of July and June. They've had a lot of top talent on campus, but I can see this class really coming together late in the process, right? It's a very popular time for kids to verbally commit right now in the summer before their senior years of high school ball. But man, if Texas A&M can play as good as we think they can play in the fall, come November and December, when it's time for these kids to actually sign the papers to go to school, I think Texas A&M could come in with some late commitments and potentially some late flips too, because you said it best. This is a team that just needs some momentum, and it sells itself. And if Texas A&M can put it on the football field this fall, I think you're going to see this Texas A&M recruiting really pick up. Maybe not in the months of June and July, but when we're talking November and December, I think we're really ramping it up.
I mean, this is a program, again, everything is there for players, facilities, top-notch. Jimbo is what he's done in the past speaks for himself. NIL, obviously there. They need to start producing on the field, and I think all the A&M fans know that. It's like they got the talent. This, again, you look at these young guys, Evan Stewart, Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart. They're all kind of coming into their own now. They were really good players as true freshmen. Man, if you can just get some production from that quarterback spot with Wigman, probably, this team can play really good. I don't see how they can't recruit in the top 5 every year, because that's kind of the basis I kind of think they should be at.
100%. And that's what I just want to talk about this team heading into 2023, because if they start, and you take a look at the talent, there's not a lot of teams that can say they can bang with Alabama, bang with Georgia, bang with those top dogs in the SEC and across the country from a talent standpoint. Texas A&M is one of those teams, and they will be one of those teams for a while. And so taking a look at this team heading into 2023, and you can start winning some games, that's how the recruiting picks up. Dill, I want to have a little conversation, and we haven't really been able to talk much Texas A&M. How are we feeling about this team in 2023? Because you look across the country, there's not that many more dangerous teams than the Aggies with the amount of talent they have in this roster.
What I think this Texas A&M team can do this year is I don't necessarily see them as being an SEC title winning team right now. Granted, I certainly think they could be. But you look, their producers, sophomores. I think they'll have some freshmen produce. I think Ruben Owens is going to be a really good player. You look across at that defense too, you're going to see a lot of sophomores as well. I think this is a team that can lay the groundwork to be really, really good in 24. Because again, I think they're good. I mean, the question is ultimately going to be quarterback. It's been quarterback for a few years now with the A&M Aggies. But they're loaded, and if they can set themselves up with a good season here, 2024 could be unreal.
You're sleeping on the biggest storyline, and it's wild because we talk about the talent of this team. Dill, this team, it can win an SEC title. I'm not trying to blow smoke to Aggie fans. Like, I'm not saying I'm picking them to win the SEC. That being said, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, if there's another team that can make some noise in the SEC, it is this Texas A&M team. You could throw in Tennessee, of course. Bobby Petrino. It's going to come down to that. Like, this offense is so loaded. And when you saw the flashes from Connor Wigman, that offense just stunk. Like, the offensive line was leaky. The play calling, I think, left a lot to be desired. If Jimbo Fisher lets Bobby Petrino cook, he's one of the best offensive-minded coaches across the country. We've seen it at multiple stops now. This team, especially on the offense side of the ball, I think you could see some leaps because Connor Wigman, I think, has the talent, and he's a little less of a known commodity. But I think he's working with arguably the best wide receiving core in the SEC.
I mean, they're up there. I think Evan Stewart might be the best wide receiver in the country. I mean, he's just so good. Aeneas Smith is obviously very good. And that was a huge get back. I don't think people appreciate kind of what 100%. He's bringing. Because you look, again, those wide receivers are going to be awfully young, just like the whole team is, frankly. So to get a guy back who's a rock, who's a star, just a stalwart kind of player in Aeneas Stewart, it's certainly huge for what they want to do.
Aeneas Smith might be the most unspoken from I think the Aggie fans appreciate what he brings to the table. I don't think the national media does. So everyone wants to talk about Evan Stewart, and I get it. Evan Stewart, outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., you might be talking about the best wide receiver in the country. Aeneas Smith's that leader, though, like a 6-year guy, and that's kind of what Texas A&M needs. Like, it's a bunch of young, really talented dudes. If you can have that guy there when it gets hard and people need to look to a leader, Aeneas Smith certainly provides that, and he is a wide receiver that makes the quarterback's job so much easier. And he's a guy I feel like I've been talking about him since the 2020 year. And he's a guy that you get the football into his hands early and let him go cook after the catch. Moose Muhammad is another guy that I think is significantly underrated. Like, that trio is very good. You're working with a couple really talented tight ends. And then Reuben Owens, another guy. You have a really good running back room. I really do think you're talking about who is going to replace Devon A. Chain's production. Reuben Owens probably the most talented running back in this backfield.
Yeah, and you saw him in the spring. He very much looks ready to rock and roll. I think he's got the athleticism, he's got the build. That was, obviously a huge get by the end of the year. We was committed to Louisville.
That's what another little flip. Like, I think we could see a lot of those flips this year if Texas A&M puts it on the field, I should say. The offensive line's probably the biggest question mark. And, like, you have some guys that I think are good. I think Bryce
You're also returning a ton of production, which is the big thing. I mean, Trey Zune, a younger player, looks really good. Bryce Foss is good. I think what you're going to have is a unit that should just be better because you pretty much kept most of it intact. And again, guys who played good football and don't count out Chase Pasantis getting some starts. I know Aggies love him. He looks very ready. He looks like he's got the size and the athleticism to do it. Again, I see this offensive line. I honestly don't think it was that bad last year. It wasn't like the best unit I've ever seen, but it certainly wasn't a liability, so I don't expect it to be now.
And you make a good point. Like, a lot of these guys who are coming up, like, you have some more veteran kind of guys, but a lot of these guys are just going into their 3rd or 4th year, and that's when you start saying, like, okay, can you get better? Like, when you're returning a 6-year offensive lineman, like kind of we were talking about South Carolina last year, like, you kind of know what those guys are. How much better are they going to get from their 5th to the 6th year? These guys are some young, talented dudes that Coach Adazio, the former BC coach, coaching the offensive line there in College Station. Like, can he get it going? It's a group that on paper I think can be solid. Now, Dill, if Texas A&M does push for an SEC title, is a top 10 team that on paper they could be, I think a large portion of it is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And this group,
it's going to be that front 7. I mean, you look at that front 7. Like, Walter Nolan looks like a guy who started to get it rolling. I thought he looked awesome in the spring. Shamar Turner, I think, is really good. And the guy I'm looking for to step up and show why he is who he is Shamar Stewart. You saw the flashes, big, long, powerful player, good athlete. If he just kind of takes that jump into what he could be, he's got it all there, and he's dominant. Like, I think this team's going to work from the inside out. Like, this front 4 could be something really
and good. It's just deep. Like, you're talking about 5-star dudes being in the 3 deep on the defensive line. It's an extremely talented group that, again, young guys who you expect to take that step heading into 2023. You said it starts at the defensive line. I think this secondary might be, again, one of the more underrated groups across the country. Damani Richardson, I probably would have been
him back was huge.
Yeah, and again, you talk about the leadership presence. Like, he's the guy that I'm looking for in terms of being a leader on the defensive side of the ball, that when it gets tough and these young kids need maybe a veteran to look to, I do think it's Damani Richardson. Tony Grimes, I was a massive fan of. Like, Tony Grimes is a first-round cornerback if he puts it on the field. And I don't know what was going on at UNC Chapel Hill, but it was like a way too talented of a defense to be as bad as they were. I like the change of scenery for Tony Grimes. Tyreek Chappell's very good. And then kind of a wild card, Sam McCall, coming over from Florida State, another top 50 national dude that was at Florida State and they didn't really know what to do with him. They're going to play him at a cornerback spot, maybe as a safety, but he's a guy that, okay, you picked a position, you're going to play defensive back. Let's see what you can do. Again,
nice spring. A guy who, again, I saw him in the spring game. That's kind of where I'm getting some of it from, but also like, just hearing some things. A guy who certainly has the athleticism, good size, which obviously is a big part of playing corner nowadays. And again, this team's good enough. It'll be if these young guys can all make the steps we think they are, because they're going to be a big part of it, especially those guys up front who are young. That's why I'm saying, like, man, if this team plays really good this year, like, watch out for them in 24, because they're just going to be.
That's for sure a team that you're optimistic about in 2024. And you make a good point. Maybe this year is just laying the groundwork, but I think it'd be foolish for these teams to overlook. And no one's going to overlook Texas.
You can't overlook A&M. They're not like Missouri. I mean, nothing against Missouri, but it's Texas A&M.
Ricochet shot at the Mizzou Tigers, one of my sleeper teams in the SEC, uncalled for. That being said, yeah, A&M blows them out of the water in terms of talent. And if you don't come to play against Texas A&M, you saw Texas A&M last game of the season, like LSU. That's a very good team. They went out and beat Bama, gave them everything they could handle. This is a team that is, when it clicks, like, they are one of the better teams in the SEC. And the thing I'm most excited for, to kind of circle back and round this out, is we got a long way away from Dreland Miller committing to Texas A&M. Shout out the Aggies getting a top 100 dude. That is phenomenal for them. But they'll Jimbo Fisher
program rolling, they're going to recruit like really good down the stretch, because this is a team that they could recruit when Jimbo Fisher was just selling them nothing really a couple of years ago. Now get some momentum, take all that talent they acquired, get them going. Like,
and it could
now
guys
aren't coming there for like promises. They're coming there because they know they're going to be pros, and it's still Texas A&M, and it's still NIL and all the other reasons.
And I wonder if Jimbo can kind of sell get us back to where we belong. It's kind of working for the Florida Gators right now. And it's like, you're selling to these kids in 2024, 2025, one, playing time, and two, like, hey, be part of like getting this program back to where it belongs. And I think that resonates with a lot of young kids. Like Michigan, I think, has been doing it a little bit as well. It's been working, but kind of to round it out, like giving Jimbo Fisher more of that general manager role as a head coach, like just overseeing everything, making sure this locker room is tightly run, because that obviously got away from him last year, and letting Petrino handle the offense, I think could be big. Like, Jimbo Fisher's not that head coach. I don't know if he's running the right offense, and I think giving Petrino the offense and letting him cook with the offense is the right move, and letting Jimbo Fisher say, I'm going to sit back and handle this roster in this locker room. That's what good head coaches do. Head coaches are great program managers, and they delegate to coordinators that are really talented.
The thing is, they don't bring in coordinators who are like try to almost be like worse than them, or in a sense, like A&M never really hired a real preeminent offensive coordinator.
Because Jimbo wanted to be the guy,
and that's obviously worked with Durkin, who is nails, and he is a really good DC. But it was time to bring in a real offensive coordinator, if you will, a guy who essentially could be a head coach kind of level coach, and bring them into this offense to see if they get something rolling.
Yeah, massive guy. And again, we said it last year, and I don't even regret saying it last year. Like, this is a team that it's going to be fun to watch, whether it doesn't go well or whether it goes well. Like,
you have your eyeballs on Texas A&M no matter what. They're
because it's going to be a very fun team to watch. I'm optimistic, and again, as just a college football fan, we talk similarly with like Nebraska and USC. Like, it is better when these elite programs are on top and competitive. I'm rooting for that with the Aggies. Again, appreciate you guys checking us out. Haven't talked a ton of Texas A&M, but you guys have always shown out, so we appreciate
it. Get it rolling, we'll be talking.
Right. If they start winning some games, getting some recruits, so we're talking a little bit more Aggie football. So appreciate you guys checking the boys out again. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.